Hey everybody, got another video here for you. I've finished up on guitar number 8, which is right up there. Yeah, right. Where is it? There it is. This is guitar number 8. Yeah, right there is guitar number 8 behind this red thing. But anyway, yeah, it's done, so now the main project is now the Gibson. And in the last video when I was planning stuff, I was going to wait and see the results of all the pickup experiments on guitar number 8 to figure out what electronics to implement. I was hoping for the best and had no alt.plan.b whatsoever. And of course, the best didn't work out. So I was originally thinking, you know, like blend pots and things like this, and blend pots didn't work. So then it was a question of, well, what do I do with the electronics? And I went through all kinds of ideas with, like, split and 3 ways and phase and what's the most that I can put on it? What's the least that I can put on it? What's the classic way to do it? What actually has to be on a guitar and what doesn't have to be on a guitar? For example, tone, you can use an EQ pedal. Volume, you've got a volume control on your amp. And for an on-off switch, you can just unplug the guitar. But things like pickup selection, phase, kill, and split, these all really need to be mounted on the guitar themselves, upstream of the jack. And then there were a number of considerations. The whole, like, for traditional versus modern electronics, how are you getting your tone? Are you old school? Do you need volume and tone knobs? Or are you new school and your volume's on the amp and your tone's on your EQ pedal in the chain? How much electronics is, should you go with the minimum amount of electronics necessary or the maximum amount possible? At what point do features start becoming gimmicks? Like the 7-band EQs I'm using right now are pretty decent for what they are. They're not too expensive. They're relatively clean. They're 7 bands, so they actually give you some amount of control over the tone curve. And but it's quite possible that somebody's got something better in their pedal chain already, since this already has a bypass and it doesn't really boost the cost of a build by that much. It's not a super huge issue. But guitars with, like, built-in amps or built-in effects or stuff, usually the amp's not that great or the effect isn't that great. If these EQ pedals weren't good enough to use in a regular pedal chain, I wouldn't be putting them on the guitars for sure. And I can't find anything anything else in this small a footprint that'll do the job. I can find stuff in a larger footprint, but it's too big for a guitar on board, at least, really, to be practical. So yeah, there are all these different considerations. It's like, how do you get your tone? And what are you going to use versus what are you not going to use? And so a lot of it just comes down to the player. And so I was thinking that since the blend knobs idea didn't work out, I was originally thinking, well, okay, alternate plan B, I'll use the preamp blender for my pickup selection, and I'll do like modern electronics with paracoil splits and a phase. And this also gives you volume, built-in tuner, and 4-band EQ. So that would get you just about everything right there. And then I thought about it some more, and I was like, well, man, if I'm going to put modern electronics on it, then I should really make the whole thing a modern build instead of a traditional type build, which means that I should do a trapezoid neck profile and a lightweight headstock and a triangular heel and a 20mm thick neck and a flat heel and all that stuff. And to make a true modern version. And then I was like, yeah, but the problem with that is that you go through the 3 hours or so it takes to make a trapezoid neck. And in the end, it's going to be a Gibson, and it's only going to have 22 frets versus 24 for a super shredder neck. So I was like, man, if I'm going to spend the time, if I'm going to spend 3 hours modding a neck, then I should do it to a 24 fret neck and not a 22 fret neck. And then I was like, well, also, by the same token, if I'm going to be building a Gibson in a modern style anyway, then I should be building an X13 or an X6. Basically either a Steinberger no head or a tail tuner no head with a Gibson scale length. I shouldn't have a headstock on it if I'm going to go ultra modern with all the best, everything except for, you know, the Gibson scale length versus the Fender scale length kind of an idea. And so then you've got the thing of, well, yeah, but that means you're modding a neck, but at the end of the day, it's only got 22 frets. And so I was like, well, yeah. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that in general, because Gibson necks are not readily available in 24 fret, it's not worth it to build an X13 or an X6 or an ultra-modern Gibson, or an ultra-modern Fender Strat or Tele, because they're all 22 fret necks or 21 fret necks. And so it's just a waste of time. If you're going to do it, you might as well do it on a 24 fret neck. So yeah, there. So that leaves, for the Gibson, that just leaves the classic versions. The twin PEF and the twin P90s with LP type electronics. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do the P90s with LP electronics. And I got a 3-way, but it's not gold. I'm going to order up a gold and use the silver as a placeholder for now. And I might need to get some gold pickguard screws for the control panel. And but I've got black ones I can squirt gold for now for placeholders. And I've got one set of Gibson knobs in gold, and I might have enough gold for knurled knobs in Gibson gold, but I'm thinking of getting some better looking gold Gibson style knobs, and I can use one of the other sets of knobs for placeholders once again. For the pots, as I recall, Gibsons use 500Ks and Fenders use 250Ks, but in either case, a 1 meg pot is going to have less treble bleed than either a 500K or 250K. So I've got 4 1 meg audio pots that I got for testing the blend knobs on Guitar 8, and they didn't work for blend knobs, but they will work for volumes and tones on a LP electronics setup. So I'll use the 1 meg pots, and then I need to look up and see what size cap the original LPs had, you know, 047 and MFT or whatever it is. And I probably don't have the correct caps. I'll have to order those. And I think, oh, and a gold jack. And once again, I probably got a jack someplace, and I can squirt a gold as a placeholder. So yeah, change of plans on the electronics. The build's going to go classic, totally classic style, just minimalist body. but classic inspired. So it's going to get LP type controls. Basically, you just take, you're going to have your bridge and tail stop block, probably. I still have to figure out the height on everything as to whether this actually needs to be up on a block or not. Bridge obviously is going to be up on some sort of spacer. But yeah, below the tailpiece here, basically you'll get, is that right? So that's upside down. You'll get something like that. Let me zoom off it here. Yeah, you'll get something like this. Your tailpiece would be up here, and the guitar will just extend, the body will extend down a little further. There'll be a black panel. Remember, it's going to be in Gibson yellow, and there'll be a black panel with 4 gold screws holding it on, and 4 gold knobs, and then I guess up here I'll have to put the selector treble rhythm switch, and then stick the jack on the back and not the side so it doesn't interfere with your leg over here, and put the strap lock all the way at the back instead of having it like up here and no wood behind this thing. So yeah, you'll actually like cut out a cavity, put a panel behind it, and have a cover plate over the top with the electronics installed into the cover plate. And so that's the battle plan now. And the next step is I need to make up a new shopping list for the changes involved, and then go fish for parts here, and then go shop online for parts I don't have here. And of course, you know me, I always forget something. One more thing, it's going to get the Gibson tuners. Okay, so here's the shopping list for the changes. Set of tuners, a 3-way, pickguard screws, knobs, a jack, and the capacitors. And so now I'm going to go dig through the parts boxes and see what I can come up with. Well, that was pretty easy. The Gibson style tuners that I have used to actually be on the curved tri-tail tuner, so the tabs have been cut off already. So I'm going to need to get another set. And let's see, I know I don't have a 3-way in gold, I've only got it in silver. Pickguard screws I don't have in gold, only in other colors. Knobs, I don't have the gold ones that I have in mine. I'll have to get those. I'm out of gold jack plates and jacks. And I might be out of jack plates. No, I think I got a set of blacks in, so. And I don't have the caps. So yeah, I don't really have any of this stuff in the proper color, at least. I don't have caps at all. Well, I might have 1 or 2 for Fender, but yeah, so I'm going to have to order up all this stuff, and I need to look up what kind of caps to get. Okay, I checked it out, and they're 22 picofarad, microfarad, whatever. They're 022 caps. These guys here, Throwback, they actually make kits that have like reproduction pots made on like 1932 machinery, and reproduction oil and paper caps, and reproduction foil and paper caps, and the whole 9 yards. So yeah, if you're looking for a harness pre-made, I mean, these guys are listing pickups for Strat, Tele, PAF, P90s, all kinds of junk. So something to check out maybe. All I really needed to know is what the rating is on these guys right here. So yeah, they're 022s. So time to go shopping. And like I said, eBay's your friend, but if you're in a hurry, Amazon's your friend. So I'm going to try Amazon first. Well, there's some pickguard screws, 50 pack for $8, $2 delivery, so call it $10. That'll work. Those are kind of Gibson over here, these guys, but they don't have little green keys on them, so let me keep looking. Check it out, an even better deal. 100 pack for $8 free shipping. I'm all over that. Right, so this is the kind of thing we want. Green keys, but that's not in a gold. $8, $3 shipping. Fleor to the rescue. Gold with green keys, $22, free shipping, prime. Be here on Wednesday. Okay, found everything. Got the capacitors, the jack, the knobs, the tuners, the pickguard screws, and three-way switch. Comes out to $72, not too bad. I'll go ahead and place the order. Odds are all this stuff will be here before I actually need it. Okay, got the parts ordered up. The tuners and the pickguard screws will actually be here day after tomorrow. And the part that'll take the longest is the three-way switch, and I've got a silver one for a placeholder, and that'll take about 2 weeks. So yeah, 2 weeks. I should be ready for a three-way switch in 2 weeks. Maybe a little bit before. Maybe in 1 week. Maybe not. Depends on how much I work on this versus goof off and play video games or spend the day gelling the tube or whatever. So, I was thinking about doing a neck plate, but as you can see here on the fretless, if you use a neck plate, that doesn't leave you a whole lot of room to taper the heel portion of the body, and you end up with a chunkier handshake, as they say, or handshake spot. Yeah, a chunkier heel area. So I think I'm going to go 2 screws and not use a neck plate, and that way I can taper the sides more like you see here on this thing. It's got a bit of a taper to it. Get it up closer to the camera. Yeah, as you can see here, this has a nice kind of boat type taper to the bottom of the body, of the heel area, and it makes for a much more comfortable heel joint. So I think I'm going to go that route. It's going to be more or less, the back end will be shaped kind of like this to match that, but then the sides will be rounded over more and less square, the way this is kind of square because of the plate. So I think that'll work well, and then just 2 screws. Okay, time to get down to the nitty-gritty of actually designing the guitar body. And basically the whole guitar is designed around the neck. So you start by taking some measurements of the neck. I checked, it's a 25.5-inch scale length. Heel, we're looking, it's another one of these long heels, 122 millimeters by 56.5 wide. 56 is pretty kind of standard for neck. Fretboard length is 462. The overhang is 4.8. So you take the difference and you've got a distance from the nut to the end of the heel of 457.2. A smidge. So that means your distance from, got a piece of scrap wood here I started laying out the distances on. So you're at the heel here, and that puts your saddle line here, 171 and 0.45 millimeters away. and tail stop running off of this, which is based on, is this in the camera? That's not in the camera. Wait a sec. Running off the X5 tail block, which is based off of original Gibson dimensions. Yeah, from the saddle line to the center of the stoptail posts is where are we at here? 50 millimeters. And then this distance right here to the end of the bridge block, which is a pretty good distance to leave below this before you put on the control panel, that's 30 millimeters. And so let me get back here. Oh, wrong way. Come on, thing. Zoom out. Out. Come on. Out. There we go. Okay. Keep going, keep going, keep going. No, 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 no. No, no. Together, 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 together. Alright. Cool. So, I took all these measurements and I grabbed this piece of scrap wood here and used it as like a little drawing board basically, so that I could lay the thing out at full scale. If this is like the end of the heel here, then the heel comes up to here and the saddle's going to go there. Here's my saddle, yeah. And then the stop tail's going to go here. Here we go, there's the stop tail. And then the control panel will go here, and yeah, both of these are rough sketches of what it would look like. You have volume, volume, tone, tone, your three-way selector, and the jack coming out here. That way the jack's not coming out here and interfering with your leg. And that way the jack is not coming out the back, which means that you'd have to hang it off the edge of the board because the board's not thick enough to put a jack into the side. So by putting it on the face here, you've actually got the jack enclosed between the piece of pickguard material for the control panel and the piece of pickguard material that goes on the back for the control panel cavity cover. So yeah, this thing's going to get a real control cavity, and a pickguard with controls in it, and it's going to get a real cavity cover. And yeah, so and it'll have gold pickguard screws to hold it all together, so that you can open up the front, open up the back. All the electronics will be contained inside here. This dashed line is where the actual control cavity will go, roughly. This is a rough sketch, but more or less to scale. And then let's see, on the swing bar, I was once again looking at the Lagrima here, my 3/4 size classical, in order to figure out this 45-degree classical swing bar position for the guitar. And it looks like it won't be too bad if I put the pivot point off to the side like an X13. Otherwise, you know, just coming or something the appropriate size. Let's say this was the swing bar. Instead of being like that, if it was coming all the way back to the middle of the guitar, like about here, you got a couple issues. First of all, it's right in the middle of the control cavity and there's nothing to screw it into really, unless you, like, you know, leave wood in there, and then that gets complicated. And then secondly, when you go down to 45 degrees, it moves the cutout point all the way back here, which is going to shift the guitar like another 2 inches to the left when it's already shifted 4 inches to the left, which is going to put the whole guitar like 6 inches to the left. And I considered a number of things, including like having a swing bar that mounted at the saddle and was actually had parts that stick out in both directions, so that you would have something like that. And then the idea was that this part would go between your legs, this would rest on the right hand, on the right leg, and this would rest on the left leg, and then you would get your 45 position that way. But that doesn't really seem to work too well. That doesn't work at all well with the normal shredder type bar. So, because see, I mean, that right there puts it there, and if you move it down here so that it would behave more like a shredder, then you're back to I'm here, but I've got a piece that sticks out, and that puts it way too far left again. So, yeah, I won't go into all the things that don't work. So yeah, put the swing bar over here on the edge. Use the standoff post. You can bring it down to 45 degrees. It doesn't shift it any further that way, or it doesn't really shift it at all left or right compared to the normal shredder, so it's just going to be a little bit to the left. I used the aged hardware build in order to try out the different positions, because of the fact that the size of the body when you center it on the saddle line is real close. I mean, it's that much longer than what this thing's probably going to end up being. So this was a good way to test to see if the fact that it's got all this stuff down here, in this case it's a trapeze, and in the case of Gibson it's going to be a control panel. But since you've got all this junk below, like the bridge and the tailpiece, whether, you know, that's got to either go to the right of your right leg, or it's got to go between your legs when you're in a classical 45 playing position. And there were questions of, does it get the guitar up too high or down low enough and stuff like that. And it seems like if you go here with a 45 and a standoff block so that it'll reach the actual guitar body for the thumb screw, then it might be okay. It might need some adjustment as far as like left and right, but it looks like it'll be okay. Okay enough that I'm going to give it a try. So this will actually have a 4-position swing bar with the strap, park, sitting, and classical positions. So you really have to figure out the guitar in all 3 dimensions. As far as like, okay, basically I just covered the length. And then I got to worry about the width, you know, how wide this panel needs to be in order to fit all the controls and still have enough wood around the edge to get the screws in. How wide the tailpiece is, how wide the saddle is. Already got a width on the neck, so how wide the bridges, the pickups are. So yeah, the width still needs to be done on this. And then the height, and the height is going to be the real critical thing. I've got a height for the neck already. I need to get the height of the pickups, and because if they're too tall, then we're going to need brake angle, and if they're not tall enough, then we're going to need shim. And then I need the bridge. I'm thinking floating might make life easier in general, but yeah, I'll need the bridge itself. Without the posts, it's not a big issue. With the posts, you've got a certain minimum height for the bridge. And And then the next question after that would be, depending on how high the bridge needs to be, and this thing is a little shy of 30, so the bridge is probably going to need to be in the 30 to 35 millimeter range. That'll determine, let's see, if it's about 30 millimeters tall, then if I go with like a 30-degree break angle, I can probably do a floating bridge without it shifting on me. But that would put the tailpiece, actually that would put the tailpiece right about almost there. So yeah, that's the critical question on height, is if I take my saddle up, if I take my bridge up high enough to accommodate this neck, then, and if I put my tailpiece straight into the body without a tailpiece block, is my tailpiece going to be so low that it makes a floating bridge slide this way? Of course, I could always, you know, pin everything down, but once you pin something down, you're committed, and if you're wrong, you're screwed, kind of a thing. So the less you got to pin down, the better. For example, in this thing, I was measuring it, and the frets are not perfect as far as like the distance goes. They're off like a third of a mil, something like that. They're off enough that it could add up to 1 millimeter difference in where the actual saddle line turns out to be. The actual theoretical saddle line, based on where the number 12 fret is. So 1 millimeter, you know, if I'm a floating bridge, then I don't care. I can go 1 more millimeter. If I'm on posts, at 1 millimeter, if I've already set my post so that my saddle's all the way at the saddle line and all the way forward, and I don't have any more adjustment than that, I'm screwed, because I can never get my intonation right on number 1 string that way. So, pardon me, I have a phone call. Okay, measured out the width of stuff. Basically, the neck's 57 wide, 56 and a half. So it'll have like 57. I'm thinking maybe go 58. Makes it easier to do the math and draw it out, mark it out. And then that leaves you, a little bit to sand off on each side. So yeah, 57, maybe 58 on the width, and just basically a rectangular tab, and shape it from there. And then that'll be the end of the neck, and then down here, all the way at the tailpiece, where the posts go, right there. You bring it out to 115. That leaves enough beef on the outside for the posts, and there'll be enough room in here for the bridge. The bridge is only clocking out, only needs about 105 mil, so that should be good. The pickups will fit in here, no problem. They don't need body underneath all of them, just under the centers basically. And then this area, it only needs to be like 110 wide for the control panel and have a nice amount of wood around the edge. But since this thing's already going to be like 115, might as well just keep it simple and keep the whole thing square at 115. So yeah, that's basically what you're looking at for the widths, and height is next. Okay, so here's our heights. We're at like almost 28 mil for the height of the neck right here. The bridge, without the posts, it's only 13, and with the posts it's 20. The tailpiece is 15, where the wires actually go into the tailpiece. So, and what we're looking at here, if we've got our saddle here and we've got our tailpiece here, then if this guy is going to be like 27, this guy is going to be in the neighborhood of 30 millimeters tall once you get the spacer block under it. And if we take the tailpiece and we mount it to the body and don't have a block, then we're looking at about 30 millimeters tall and a spacing of about 50 millimeters, which works out to 30, 50, tangent is opposite over adjacent, so opposite, adjacent, so 30/50 is the arc tangent of our break angle right here. Our break angle right here is what we're calculating. We got 50 this way, we got 30 coming up this way in order to be about where the bridge is going to be. And so we're going to figure out what this break angle is going to turn out to be. And so you punch it up in the calculator, and it's the arc tangent of 0.6, which is 30.96 degrees, which ought to put us in the house for not so steep of a break angle that it's going to cause a floating saddle to push forward. So we should be safe going just like that. And then all we got to do is drill a couple holes for the tail piece, and if they're off by a mil, you know, as long as the tail piece will fit on the post, it doesn't matter if they're like a mil this way or a mil that way, because we got a floating bridge, and the tail piece doesn't really matter to begin with. What's critical is the positioning of the bridge. So yeah, that's looking pretty good. And as far as the pickups go, they're obviously going to be not as tall as this. I didn't actually fish up the P90s yet, but there's no way they're as tall as this neck is thick. So they'll go like here, and where are we at? Yeah, they'll go like here and here, and they'll get a little bit of shim, bring them up kind of like that, kind of an idea. And yeah, so that's the basic concept. And I think that takes care of figuring out the measurements in all three dimensions. So the next step is to grab the real body blank wood and mark it out. Okay, added up all the length measurements, and it came out to 493 millimeters total. So I went ahead and I marked out 493 millimeters, but unfortunately this board, if you look at this board's pretty long. It's about a 7-footer, and there's not enough room on either side of the saw in order to use the table saw to cut this. So I'm thinking that I'm just going to go with this kind of thing and have at it. So yeah, let me do that. Okay, got the blank marked out here. There's the neck heel area, and the end of the heel, the saddle line, the line for the tail, for the stop tail posts. The outer square is where the pickguard material will be, and the inner square is the control cavity cutout. And over here I've actually sketched in where the swing bar will be in the seated position. That's not the 45, but that's just to get a general idea of where the bar will be sticking out. So as far as like cutting this, I mean, I could go in with the table saw and come this way this far, and come like this way this far and clean up with the jig, or I could just do it all with the jig. But this stuff is so easy to cut. I think I'm going to do a combination of like hand saw and maybe the coping saw. So yeah, I'm going to have at it the old-fashioned way. I'll be back. Obviously, clamping this thing down to a solid bench might help, but that'd make it too easy, right? Okay, I'm back and it's been cut out. I did what I could with the hand saws, and then I resorted to the jigsaw. And let's see, some stuff came in. Tuners came in. The pickguard screws came in. I dug up the 1 meg pots and decided to use these type of knobs for the placeholders. They're going to be about the same size as the speed knobs that are on the way still. And dug up a jack. That'll be a placeholder until the gold one gets here. Dug up a 3-way switch, another placeholder till the gold one gets here. And once I had all these components, then I could figure out more or less the minimum size of the control cavity. And got that figured out. And got it tentatively marked out here on the body behind the tailpiece line. But I think what I'm going to do is actually install the tailpiece and see how much territory I've actually got left to work with, so that I can get a nice centered kind of a panel thing with the same amount of wood around all the edges and still fit all the controls in the middle, and that'll tell me exactly where to put the cavity and how big to make the control panel itself. So yeah, I think it's, oh, and as I believe I already mentioned, I'm not going to use a plate for the heel. I'm just going to go with 2 screws, because that way I can shape it more. And yeah, so at this point, it's probably going to be a good idea to do a full test assembly before sending this off to finish. So I guess I'll do it the right way and full test assembly, unfinished. And these 2 pieces here are the cutoff from the body, and they'll provide me with some material for making like spacers and posts for depth pick guards and things like that. Okay, I think that's going to do it for this video. So until the next one, everybody have a good one.